My husband cheated on me in our 10-year-old relationship with a surrogate who was carrying our child and thought that he could hide it forever. He was a fool. I, 33F, never thought I'd be in this situation, but here I am, questioning my marriage and feeling lost. This is a long and complicated story, so please bear with me as I try to explain everything. I come from a wealthy family. My father is a successful businessman, and I've always had a privileged life. I received a good education and never really wanted for anything. Despite this, I always tried to remain grounded and see the best in people. 6 years ago, I met Alex at a restaurant where he worked as a waiter. I was instantly drawn to him. There was something about his warm smile and kind eyes that caught my attention. We started talking, and I found myself visiting the restaurant more often just to see him. As we got to know each other, I learned about Alex's background. He was an orphan who had faced many challenges in life. He'd worked hard to make something of himself, and I admired his resilience and determination. Despite not having much, he always had a positive outlook on life. Our friendship quickly turned into something more. We started dating, and I fell head over heels in love. Alex was different from anyone I'd ever met. He was kind, hardworking, and genuine. I felt like I could be myself around him, without any pretenses or expectations. After about a year of dating, I knew I wanted to marry Alex. When I told my father about my intentions, he was not pleased. He warned me against rushing into marriage, especially with someone from such a different background. He was concerned that Alex might be after my money or social status. I tried to explain to my father that Alex wasn't like that. I told him about Alex's character, his work ethic, and how he made me feel. But my father remained skeptical. He told me that if I insisted on marrying Alex, I should at least protect myself with a prenuptial agreement. The idea of a prenup felt offensive to me. Alex had practically no assets, and I felt like asking for a prenup would be insulting to him. It felt like I was putting a price tag on our love. I argued with my father about this, but he was adamant. He even went as far as to threaten cutting me out of his will if I didn't agree to the prenup. I was torn. On one hand, I didn't want to upset my father or risk my inheritance. On the other hand, I didn't want to start my marriage on a foundation of mistrust. After much deliberation, I decided to talk to Alex about it. To my surprise, Alex was understanding about the prenup. He said he had nothing to hide, and if it made my father feel more comfortable, he was willing to sign it. We agreed on a temporary prenup that would dissolve after 7 years of marriage. With that settled, we got married after 2 years of dating. It was a beautiful ceremony, though I could tell my father was still not entirely happy about the union. Nevertheless, I was overjoyed to be starting my life with Alex. After the wedding, Alex moved into my apartment. It was a big change for both of us, but we were excited to begin our life together. I helped Alex enroll in a diploma program to further his education. I paid for his tuition and covered all our living expenses since Alex's income from his part-time job wasn't much. The first year of our marriage was blissful. We were happy and in love, enjoying our time together and dreaming about our future. We decided to start trying for a baby. I've always wanted to be a mother, and Alex was excited about the prospect of starting a family. However, things didn't go as planned. Month after month passed, and I wasn't getting pregnant. We tried everything, tracking my ovulation, changing our diets, even trying alternative therapies. Nothing seemed to work. Finally, after almost a year of trying, I got pregnant. We were overjoyed. We started making plans, thinking of names, and imagining our life with a baby. But our happiness was short-lived. In the 4th month of my pregnancy, I miscarried. The loss was devastating. I felt like a failure as a woman and as a wife. Alex tried his best to comfort me, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes too. We decided to see a fertility specialist to understand what was happening. After numerous tests and consultations, we received heartbreaking news. Due to some complications, I would not be able to carry a baby to term. The doctor explained the risks and advised against trying to conceive naturally. I was crushed. I fell into a deep depression, withdrawing from Alex and everyone else. I felt like I had failed him, failed us. Alex tried to be supportive, but I could sense his frustration and disappointment too. For the next few years, we tried to move on with our lives. Alex completed his diploma and started looking for better job opportunities. I continued working at my father's company, trying to lose myself in work to forget about my inability to have children. After 5 years of marriage, Alex brought up the idea of surrogacy. He had been researching alternatives and thought this might be a good option for us. At first, I was hesitant. The idea of another woman carrying our child felt strange to me, but as Alex explained more about the process, I started to warm up to the idea. We visited a fertility clinic and began the surrogacy process. It was a long and complicated journey, involving numerous medical procedures and legal consultations. We also had to find a suitable surrogate. That's when we met Tanya, 28F. She was young, healthy, and had successfully carried a child before. Tanya needed money for her father's medical treatment, which is why she had decided to become a surrogate. We felt an instant connection with her and decided she would be the perfect surrogate for our baby. We used my egg and Alex's sperm for the surrogacy. The process was successful and Tanya became pregnant with our child. I was overjoyed but also nervous. I wanted to make sure everything went perfectly. I asked Tanya to move into our apartment for the duration of the pregnancy. I wanted to be able to monitor her health and make sure she was comfortable. Tanya agreed, and we set up a room for her in our home. At first, everything seemed fine. I treated Tanya like a sister, taking care of her needs and accompanying her to all her doctor's appointments. Alex was supportive too, though he seemed a bit uncomfortable with the new living arrangement. As the pregnancy progressed, I noticed Alex becoming more distant. He started working longer hours and seemed distracted when he was home. When I asked him about it, he said he felt awkward with Tanya in the house. He said it was strange to have a pregnant woman around who wasn't his wife. I tried to understand his perspective and not worry too much about it. I focused on preparing for the baby's arrival, setting up the nursery, and making sure Tanya was comfortable. After 9 months, Tanya gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. Holding our daughter for the first time, I felt a love I had never experienced before. Alex seemed happy too, though I noticed he was a bit reserved with the baby at first. I asked Tanya to stay with us for a few more months to help with the baby. She agreed, and we fell into a routine of caring for our newborn daughter. I was exhausted but happy, finally feeling like I had the family I had always dreamed of. But as the weeks passed, I started noticing some strange things. Alex and Tanya seemed to have developed a close bond. They often had inside jokes that I didn't understand, and I sometimes caught them whispering to each other when they thought I wasn't looking. I tried to brush off my suspicions. After all, they had spent a lot of time together during the pregnancy while I was at work. It was natural that they would become friends, right? But a nagging feeling in my gut told me something wasn't right. One night, I woke up to check on the baby and found Alex's side of the bed empty. I heard voices coming from the kitchen and went to investigate. I found Alex and Tanya sitting close together at the kitchen table, talking in hushed tones. They jumped apart when they saw me, looking guilty. When I questioned Alex about it later, he said Tanya had been having trouble sleeping and he was just keeping her company. But something about his explanation didn't sit right with me. I started paying more attention to their interactions. I noticed the way Alex's eyes would linger on Tanya, the way they seemed to gravitate towards each other in a room. There was a tension between them that I couldn't explain. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out what to do. Am I overreacting? Am I seeing things that aren't there because of my own insecurities? Or is there really something going on between my husband and our surrogate? Part of me wants to confront them both, to demand the truth. But another part of me is terrified of what I might discover. What if my suspicions are true? What would that mean for our marriage, for our daughter? I feel like I'm going crazy. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I'm constantly on edge, watching their every move, trying to catch them in the act. This isn't the person I want to be, but I don't know how to stop these thoughts. I've considered talking to my father about this, but I'm afraid of what he might say. He never fully approved of Alex, and I'm worried he'll use this situation to say I told you so. I'm also worried about what this could mean for our daughter. If Alex and Tanya are indeed having an affair, how will that affect our little girl? She's innocent in all of this, and the thought of her growing up in a broken home breaks my heart. I've thought about hiring a private investigator to get to the bottom of this, but that feels like a betrayal of trust. If I'm wrong, and Alex finds out I've been spying on him, it could irreparably damage our marriage. I've also considered suggesting that Tanya move out, but I'm afraid that if there is something going on, they'll just find ways to meet in secret. At least with Tanya living with us, I can keep an eye on things. I feel like I'm at a crossroads, and I don't know which way to turn. Should I confront Alex and Tanya? Should I try to gather more evidence? Should I just trust my husband and ignore my suspicions? I never thought I'd be in this position. When I married Alex, I thought we'd have our happily ever after. I stood by him when my father disapproved. I supported him through his education. I went through the heartbreak of infertility with him. And now, just when we finally have the family we've always wanted, I find myself questioning everything. I would appreciate any advice or perspectives on this situation. I feel so alone and confused, and I don't know who to turn to. Thank you for reading this far, and for any insights you can offer. Update. It's been 6 months since I last posted, and a lot has happened. I wish I could say things got better, but unfortunately, they got much worse. I'm still in shock over what transpired, but I'll try to explain everything as clearly as I can. Our daughter was born healthy and beautiful. The first few months were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and adjusting to life as new parents. Tanya continued to live with us, helping with the baby. I was grateful for the extra help, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling I had about her relationship with Alex. I tried to push my suspicions aside and focus on our new family. I threw myself into motherhood, cherishing every moment with our daughter. Alex seemed to be warming up to fatherhood too, but there was still a distance between us that I couldn't explain. One day, I was supposed to work late. I had a big project due, and I told Alex I wouldn't be home until after dinner. However, I managed to finish my work earlier than expected. I decided to surprise everyone by coming home early. When I arrived home, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The house was too quiet. As I walked in, I heard our daughter crying from her nursery. The cries sounded distressed, like she had been crying for a while. I rushed to the nursery and found our baby girl red-faced and wailing in her crib. She was clearly upset and had been left unattended for some time. I picked her up, trying to soothe her, all while wondering where Alex and Tanya were. A sense of dread washed over me as I realized they were nowhere to be seen. I checked the living room, the kitchen, and even Tanya's room, but they weren't there. With my heart pounding, I approached our bedroom. As I got closer, I heard muffled sounds coming from inside. I pushed the door open, and what I saw shattered my world. Alex and Tanya were in our bed, intimately entangled. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't even notice me at first. I stood there, frozen in shock, unable to process what I was seeing. When they finally realized I was there, chaos ensued. Tanya scrambled to cover herself, her face a mix of fear and guilt. Alex jumped up, fumbling for words, trying to come up with excuses that made no sense. I couldn't speak. The betrayal was so overwhelming that I felt physically ill. I just stood there holding our crying daughter as my world crumbled around me. When I finally found my voice, all I could say was that they needed to leave. I told them to pack their things and get out of my house immediately. I needed time to think, to process what had happened. Alex tried to explain, to make excuses, but I couldn't bear to hear it. I took our daughter and left the room, giving them time to get dressed and pack. I sat in the nursery, holding our baby close, trying to calm both her and myself. An hour later, they were gone. The house felt empty. I couldn't believe how quickly my life had fallen apart. Over the next few days, I was in a daze. I called in sick to work and focused on taking care of our daughter. I couldn't eat or sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together in our bed. Alex tried to call and text me multiple times, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I needed time to figure out what I wanted to do. After a week, I finally agreed to talk to Alex on the phone. I asked him what he wanted, hoping against hope that he would beg for forgiveness, that he would choose our family. His response left me cold. He told me without a hint of shame that he was in love with Tanya. He wanted her to live with us, to be a part of our family. He even had the audacity to blame me for his infidelity, saying that my focus on the baby had pushed him away. I was stunned by his selfishness. How could he think I would ever agree to such an arrangement? How could he blame me for his betrayal? I told him that was absolutely not an option. Our marriage was over. I couldn't trust him anymore, and I certainly couldn't live with the woman he had cheated on me with. After that conversation, I knew what I had to do. I contacted a lawyer and filed for divorce. It was a painful decision, but I knew it was the right one. I couldn't stay in a marriage without trust or respect. The hardest part was figuring out what to do about our daughter. Despite everything, I didn't want her to grow up without a father. After much deliberation and discussions with my lawyer, I agreed to a 50-50 custody arrangement. It broke my heart to be away from my baby girl for half the time, but I believed it was in her best interest to have both parents in her life. The divorce proceedings were difficult. Alex fought me on every point, trying to get more than his fair share of our assets. I was grateful for the prenup we had signed, as it protected most of my assets. Still, it was a long and draining process. Throughout all of this, I struggled with intense feelings of betrayal and self-doubt. I kept replaying every moment of our relationship, wondering if there were signs I had missed. I questioned whether I had done something to drive Alex away. But as time passed, I realized that Alex's actions were not my fault. He made the choice to betray our marriage vows. He chose to have an affair with Tanya, disregarding the impact it would have on our family. I also had to deal with the added pain of Tanya's betrayal. I had welcomed her into our home, treated her like family. The fact that she could do this to me, to our daughter, was almost harder to bear than Alex's infidelity. My father, when he found out what happened, was furious. He wanted to cut Alex off completely, to fight for full custody of our daughter. It took a lot of convincing to get him to understand why I had agreed to shared custody. The hardest part was explaining the situation to friends and family. I felt humiliated having to admit that my husband had cheated on me with our surrogate. Many people were shocked, offering support and condolences. Others, I could tell, had suspected something was going on. As for Tanya and Alex, last I heard, they were living together. The thought of them raising my daughter half the time is still painful, but I'm trying to come to terms with it. I've made it clear to Alex that Tanya is not to play a motherly role in our daughter's life. She may be present, but she is not to be introduced as anything more than Alex's partner. These past few months have been the hardest of my life. There are days when I can barely get out of bed, when the pain and anger threaten to overwhelm me, but I'm trying to stay strong for my daughter. She needs me to be the best mother I can be. I've started seeing a therapist to help me process everything that's happened. It's been helpful to have someone to talk to, someone who can help me work through my feelings of betrayal and loss. I'm also focusing on rebuilding my life. I've thrown myself into my work, finding solace in my career. I've reconnected with old friends and tried to build a support system outside of my marriage. On the days when I don't have my daughter, I feel lost. The house feels too big, too empty. I'm considering moving to a new place, somewhere without the memories of my life with Alex. As for the future, I'm taking it one day at a time. Right now, my priority is being the best mother I can be to my daughter. I'm not ready to think about dating or finding a new relationship. The thought of trusting someone again seems impossible right now. I know I have a long road ahead of me. Co-parenting with Alex and having to see Tanya during handovers is going to be challenging, but I'm determined to make it work for my daughter's sake. Looking back at my original post, I realize now that my instincts were right. I should have trusted my gut feeling that something was wrong, but I can't dwell on the past. All I can do now is move forward and try to create the best life possible for myself and my daughter. To anyone who might be in a similar situation, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags. And remember, you deserve to be with someone who respects you and your relationship. Thank you to everyone who offered advice on my original post. Your support meant more than you know. I'm still navigating this new reality, but I'm hopeful that brighter days are ahead.